How's it going, guys? Today I want to talk about the Rolex Submariner and a couple of revelations that kind of occurred to me recently. Mainly because I'm planning on going on a pretty long Asian trip. I'll be gone for a month or so, and I am trying to contemplate which watches I should bring. Wristwatch check, the Rolex Explorer 2, and I also, want to bring more than one timepiece. Right? I just came back from a big Asian trip a couple months back, and I only took my Rolex GMT Master 2, and I realized that I need to have two watches. I can't just have one watch, especially for such a long trip. So I'm going to be taking a dress watch and a sports watch. Now, do the obvious choice to take when you go abroad, especially when you go far away, is a GMT function watch. But I just want to explain that you can, I'm sure a lot of you who own Submariners or any kind of dive watch have already realized that the Submariner or the dive bezel can also help you, determine a second time zone. What I mean by that is, at the 12-hour marker of the dive bezel, I don't want to say 12-hour, but at the starting point of the dive bezel is usually indicated by a triangle or whatever whatever dive watch it may be. It will be a prominent marker. For the Submariner, it's a triangle with a circular loom dot, and that can be your 12-hour point, right? If you look at the dive bezel, it's partitioned like like a 12-hour bezel. So, for example, here out in the Pacific Northwest, it's 2 o'clock, 5 to 2 in the afternoon. For me to determine what the time is in Korea, which is where I'll be going, all I gotta do is place the dive bezel, the start of the dive bezel at the 8 o'clock mark, right? And that tells me that it's 6 o'clock in Korea. Obviously, it's not 6 p.m. Therefore, it's a couple minutes to 6 a.m., 6 in the morning, right? And it's actually it's a very minimalistic way to travel with. You can travel with the dive watch and keep track of your home time very, very simply, right? And if you're traveling, let's say cross continent to the East Coast, anyone can keep track of 3-hour time difference, right? You don't really need a GMT function for that. So so that being said, right? Maybe that's why the Rolex Explorer 2 is somewhat underappreciated, right? Simply because if you have a Rolex Submariner with a date, right, a Submariner date, you don't really need a 24-hour home time function, if you get what I mean. So the Explorer 2 has somewhat become, I hate to say it, but like a little bit redundant, right? Because you can track a second time zone using a diver, right? Which is great, right? Of course, it's a lot easier using the Explorer 2, right? I just look at it, right? I have it set to Korea time. It tells me it's 6 in the morning, so it's really easy. Whereas in the dive watch, you kind of have to visualize, right? Right, you just visualize, turn it this way, right? And it shows you that it's almost 6, right? 6 hour, right? It's pretty much 6 a.m. Whereas over here it's clearly indicated. So, so that being said, you know, that's why I think the Rolex Submariner date, right? I think the Rolex Submariner date is the although I don't have the Rolex Submariner date, but I think if you were to have only one sports watch, just one sports watch, it you know, the ultimate sports watch is the Rolex Submariner date. I feel, you know, you can do everything with it. You can time with it. You know, you can use it as a second time zone, right? You can, you know, it can help you track a second time zone. And yeah, and that's just what I've recently realized. Of course, I've got a no date sub. I love it. You know, extremely minimalistic, right? Very minimalistic, very functional at the same time, right? Which makes it such a great watch, right? So yeah, so in this video, you know, I mean, I love the Submariner, right? But I honestly prefer the Explorer 2. I feel that it's extremely undervalued right now, and I'm trying to make sense of why it's so, right? Of why the Explorer 2 is so undervalued, and I think this is one of the reasons, right? If you want a GMT function, right? Most people would get a dive, right? Get the Submariner, and then they would get the GMT Master 2, where they can track 3 time zones, right? You kind of like go big or go home, you know? And then that's why the Explorer 2 doesn't get much love, and which is unfortunate, because I think it deserves to be, you know, it deserves to be up there with the Submariner and the GMT, but it simply isn't, right? It just isn't, and I think this is why. It's because the Submariner date kind of makes the Explorer 2 redundant, and if you really want a GMT function, you would go with the Rolex GMT. So yeah, right? I feel that for most people, right, for most people and their lifestyles, if you were to have just one watch, right? If you were to just have one watch, I would say one sports watch, right? You know that the Rolex Submariner is the greatest sports watch of all time. You know, I have a love-hate relationship with that, but I cannot deny its execution, its minimalist virtues, while also being extremely functional and elegant at the same time. It really is a great watch, right? And you know, is it my favorite watch? Is it my favorite Rolex? No, it's not. But I have to give credit where credit is due, and this is why the Rolex Submariner is the most faked and copied watch of all time, right? It cuts both ways, and that's why when I bought this watch, I really didn't want to get the date version, because it's just so faked, you know. At least with a no date, right? With the no date version, it's not as faked, right? It's not as highly faked. It kind of flies under the radar. It's a Submariner. You know, it's a unique looking Submariner, I guess, if there's such a way to describe it. But the no date sub, I feel, is is the most wearable submariner, right? If you have a right, the modern ceramic sub, those things you can spot a mile away, you know, and it's really it catches your attention, right? I've seen many ceramic subs, a lot of them, and and you know, it just draws your attention right to the wrist. However, with a no date sub, I've seen people with no date subs. I look at the whole person, right? I look at the person, how he's put together. Whereas when I see a ceramic sub, I just look at the sub. I just look at the watch. I don't really look at the person at all. I don't. Too much attention is drawn to the wrist, right? Let's put it that way, and I think that's something which a lot of modern watches have kind of lost, right? They don't they just draw too much attention to itself, right? Too much attention is placed on the watch and not enough on the person, and I think that is a pity. That's too bad. Whereas with the older submariners, especially with the vintage models, when you see one, you look at the person, right? You look at how he's put together, and you look at the total package and not just his wrist. And I don't know why I kind of went on a tangent. I was just trying to talk about why the Submariner is the greatest sports watch of all time, but it's funny, these thoughts just come, you know, pop to my head, and I just want to document them on YouTube, because if I don't, I probably will forget these thoughts. They're just fleeting thoughts. Okay, anyway, thanks for watching. Bye.